Everyone else moved on the moment it was over. You're still standing at the door it closed, reading your own words back like evidence. The other person has already started their evening. They've eaten, opened their phone, thought about something completely unrelated, and you are somewhere in the middle of a sentence you said hours ago, trying to remember exactly how it sounded out loud. You're not remembering the conversation. You're rerunning it. There's a difference. Remembering lets something stay in the past. Rerunning keeps it live, keeps it open, keeps you inside it long after the room emptied. And the strange part is how specific it gets, not the whole conversation. Usually one moment. A pause that felt a beat too long. A reply that came back shorter than you expected. A face that shifted in a way you can't quite name. You return to that one frame and study it like it's holding something you missed. Here's what's quietly happening underneath. Part of you treats the end of a conversation as the start of a review. While you were talking, you couldn't fully check how it was going. You were busy listening, responding, reading their expression, choosing words in real time. So the moment it ends, the part of you that was watching from a slight distance finally gets to do its job. It pulls the whole thing back up and starts looking for damage. And it isn't random. It's searching for one thing in particular. Evidence that you got something wrong. A word that might have landed badly. A tone that might have come across colder than you meant. A joke that maybe didn't sit right. You scan your own behavior the way someone checks a room after guests have left, looking for the thing that's out of place. But notice what you're actually trying to do. You're trying to find out after the fact whether you're still okay with them, whether the connection is still intact, whether you're still safe in their eyes. And because you can't ask them directly, you ask the recording instead. You play it again, hoping this time it'll tell you something the first time didn't. And sometimes the thing you're replaying isn't even what you said. It's how you felt while saying it. That small tightening in your chest. That moment when you wondered if you were talking too much. That slight rush to explain yourself before they misunderstood. The body remembers the uncertainty before the mind turns it into a case. So later, when everything is quiet, the body brings the moment back. You might be brushing your teeth, making tea, driving home, folding laundry, and suddenly one sentence rises again. Not because it matters as much as it feels like it matters, but because some part of you still hasn't received the signal that the moment is over. This is why the replay often gets louder at night. During the day, there is enough noise to keep it in the background. Tasks, messages, movement, other people. But when the room gets still, the conversation returns with strange clarity. You hear the tone again. You see the expression again. You think of the better answer too late. And that is one of the cruelest parts. The replay gives you a perfect response only after the real moment is gone. Suddenly you know what you should have said. You know how you could have sounded calmer, clearer, less awkward, more confident. But the version of you inside the conversation did not have the silence, distance, and hindsight that the version of you reviewing it has now. You were not failing. You were responding in real time. And real time is never as polished as the version your mind writes afterward. It rarely reassures you because the replay isn't built to reassure you. It's built to keep looking. And a mind that keeps looking will always find one more thing to examine. One more reading of your own sentence. One more possible interpretation of their reply. One more theory about what they really meant. The search doesn't end when you found the answer. It ends when you're too tired to keep searching. If you look closely, you'll notice the replaying almost always tilts in one direction. You don't go back to the moments where you were warm, or funny, or genuinely yourself. Those evaporate. You go back to the moments that felt uncertain. The version of the conversation you carry afterward is edited down to its most questionable parts. Not because that's what happened, but because that's what the worry decided was worth keeping. And somewhere along the way, the replaying started feeling responsible. Like reviewing the conversation is how you take care of the relationship. Like, if you can just catch the mistake, you can fix it before it costs you anything. So the loop disguises itself as diligence, as being thoughtful, as caring more than other people do. But caring is not the same as monitoring. And love is not the same as constantly checking whether you're about to lose your place in someone's mind. Sometimes what feels like care is really fear wearing a softer voice. It tells you that if you stop replaying, you're being careless. That if you stop reviewing, you'll miss the warning sign. That if you let the conversation end, something unresolved will quietly grow in the dark. But this is the contradiction at the center of it. The replaying doesn't protect the connection. It slowly pulls you out of it. While you're auditing what already happened, you're not actually present for what's happening now. The conversation that ended keeps taking up the space the next one needs. And the people you're so worried about losing rarely even know there was anything to review. There's a reason this pattern settled in, though, and it isn't a flaw in you. Somewhere along the way, you learned that other people's reactions mattered enough to track carefully. Maybe a tone once changed without warning. Maybe approval felt like something that could be withdrawn. Maybe being misunderstood once cost you more than it should have. So you got good at watching. You got good at noticing the smallest shifts in how someone responded to you. And watching that closely doesn't switch off just because the conversation does. What you call overthinking is really a kind of monitoring that never received permission to stop. A part of you stayed on duty long after the moment that taught it to. It replays conversations because once, reading people accurately felt like the thing that kept you steady. So the loop is not proof that something is wrong with you. It's proof that some part of you learned to care very carefully about being understood. That's not a defect. That's a sensitivity that got asked to work over time. And here's something worth sitting with. The version of the conversation you keep returning to is not the real one. It's a copy you've handled so many times the edges have worn down. Each replay changes it slightly, sharpens the parts that worried you, blurs the parts that were fine. The conversation the other person actually had with you ended when they walked away. The one you're still in is something you've been quietly building ever since. And while you're building that second version, they're often living inside a completely different reality. The sentence you've replayed 20 times might not have stayed with them for 20 seconds. The pause you interpreted as disappointment may have been exhaustion. The short reply may have been distraction. The expression that bothered you may have belonged to a problem that had nothing to do with you. But anxiety makes other people's ambiguity feel personal. It takes what you don't know and fills the silence with self-blame. Maybe it was you. Maybe you sounded strange. Maybe you talked too much. Maybe they saw something in you and quietly changed their mind. That is the deepest fear underneath the replay. Not that you said the wrong thing, but that one wrong thing could make you less welcome, less wanted, less safe with people. And when that fear is running underneath the conversation, no amount of reviewing will finally satisfy it. Because the replay isn't actually searching for accuracy. It's searching for certainty. And human relationships rarely provide as much certainty as anxious minds want. You don't have to force the replay to stop. That usually just creates another battle. But you can begin noticing the difference between the conversation that happened and the trial that came after it. One was real. One is the part of you still trying to keep you safe with information it doesn't actually have. And the truth underneath all of it is simpler than the loop wants you to believe. Most of the conversations you've replayed for hours were, to the other person, completely ordinary. They weren't grading you. They weren't holding your uncertain sentence up to the light. They weren't building a case against you. They were already somewhere else, thinking about their own day, their own worries, their own unfinished conversations. The door you've been standing at closed for them a long time ago. You're allowed to step back from it too. Not by deciding you handled everything perfectly. Not by finally finding the answer hidden somewhere in the replay. But by letting the conversation be finished. The way it already is for everyone except the part of you that's still listening. That part of you was only trying to make sure you were okay. It learned to stay alert for a reason. It learned to watch carefully for a reason. It learned to keep listening long after everyone else left for a reason. But the conversation ended. You don't have to keep standing at the door. You don't have to keep reading your own words back like evidence. You were not on trial. You were simply a human being having a conversation. And despite what the replay keeps suggesting, you were okay in it. You are okay now.
Perhaps the change you were searching for was never outside of you. Perhaps it was always waiting for this moment of stillness. So for now, stop pushing, stop chasing, and simply remain here, because something within you already knows the way.